Hello, friends, and welcome to Coached by Tara, the podcast where Tara...
Hi, that's me.
...explains things to me. Hi, I'm Mike, and this is Season 2!
Woo!
Season 2 of Coached by Tara is finally here. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We did our zero episode where I explained the previous book.
2.0? Like Season 2,
yeah,
episode
Season
0?
2'd. Apparently, tutor. I don't know what I'm saying. Episode 0, where I explained the first book, which actually hasn't happened yet in our timeline, but for you guys, it's happened.
Yes.
So hopefully, I did a good job.
In our timeline, we're living in two separate timelines.
This is the bad timeline, and the good timeline, I've already explained it, and it's fine. Anyway, we are here. If you guys aren't familiar with the podcast, you're just catching up with Season 2 for some reason. This podcast, Tara explains different books to me, and we started almost 2 years ago at this point with the first Twilight book. We got through it. We watched the movie together on Discord, and then,
life happens.
Life happens and it got in the way, but we're back.
But hey, we bought a house. That's a thing.
Yes, we own a house now.
We're now in the house. We're recording this.
We are now in the house recording it. We're still, we're mostly settled in. We're still getting some stuff done. And but yeah, we're eventually going to do a tour of the house on our Patreon.
Yeah.
That people can check out. So that would be cool. We've waited so long to get into this next Twilight book. What is the title of this book, Tara?
This title of this next book is New Moon.
Twilight New Moon.
Twilight New Moon.
So
here's the cover if you'd like to see.
Ah, yes, I see it.
Ah, yes.
So it's a new moon for us at this point, basically.
Yeah.
We are here in a new moon, and I'm so excited to finally be back to Coached by Tara.
I know, and I'm so excited for you to know more about this series.
Yeah.
There was this time, a few months ago, well, maybe it was happening during the last one, where that girl almost spoiled it for you at your work.
Yep, there was a girl who just started telling me about how dumb Twilight was, and I was like, hey, can you not? But I didn't want to, she worked for me, so I didn't want to be I have this podcast, so I had to just be hey, I don't really want to hear about Twilight. I kind of had to be a dick.
I didn't know, if we had explained that already, but it's just there's so many circumstances where you've been almost spoiled.
Yeah. But I've been spoiler free for the most part. There's some things I know, but they're things that I already knew going into this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
okay. So how do we want to start this off? I mean, we kind of recapped in their timeline.
Yeah,
hopefully.
welcome to this timeline. In the good timeline, we started this podcast literally 2 months after the first season was done. But this is the bad timeline, so here we are a year later.
Yeah.
Over a year later. But anyway, I guess we should take a break, and then when we come back, Tara's going to explain the first chapter. What's the name of the first chapter, Tara?
Well, there's actually a preface.
Oh, are we getting prefaced right now? Should we do the preface before the break?
We should do the preface right now,
All right, do it. Preface me.
Well, there's a quote before the preface as well.
Okay, so there's a quote before the preface before the first chapter.
Yeah, I think that there was in the other book, too. I don't remember what it is, but this is the quote. It says, I'll say it's from Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 6.
Okay.
And it says, these violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume. So just a little preface to the preface.
Can I just say, I get that Shakespeare is like a very important like writer for like everybody.
I don't know, maybe just like history as a whole.
History as a whole. He don't make no goddamn sense.
I think it makes sense.
That didn't make no sense to me. Read it again.
It says, these violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die, like fire and powder, which as they kiss, consume.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, we'll start with the preface then.
Okay, let's preface me.
I guess I'll just read it.
Yeah, read me.
I haven't done this in a while, so I'm like, what do I even do? Do I just explain it or do I just read it?
Preface me. I think when you get to the chapters, you more like condense it and you don't need to read.
Yeah, it's only a page and a half.
Right. Read me the preface.
On phone, page and a half. I think in the book it's literally a page.
Oh, okay.
It says, I felt like I was trapped in one of those terrifying nightmares, the one where you have to run till your lungs burst, but you can't make your body move fast enough. My legs seemed to move slower and slower as I fought my way through the callous crowd, but the hands on the huge clock tower didn't slow. With relentless, uncaring force, they turned I don't even know how to say that word. Wow, I feel silly. Inexorably,
I think is right.
Toward the end. So basically, the hands on the clock always turn toward the end of everything is what it says. But this was no dream, and unlike the nightmare, I wasn't running for my life. I was racing to save something infinitely more precious. My own life meant little to me today. Alice had said there was a good chance we would both die here. Perhaps the outcome would be different if she weren't trapped by the brilliant sunlight. Only I was free to run across this bright, crowded square, and I couldn't run fast enough. So it didn't matter to me that we were surrounded by our extraordinarily dangerous enemies. As the clock began to toll out the hour, vibrating under the soles of my sluggish feet, I knew I was too late, and I was glad something bloodthirsty waited in the wings. For in failing at this, I forfeited any desire to live. The clock tolled again, and the sun beat down from the exact center point of the sky.
Yikers.
Yeah.
So that's like in a video game when it starts with like a dream, and then your protagonist wakes up and your mom's waking you up for like, wake up, sleepyhead.
It's kind of funny because the first chapter does actually start with a dream also.
So wait, the preface is a dream and
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways.
I
guess we'll take a break.
Yeah,
there.
We're going to take a break and we'll jump into the first chapter.
Yeah, sounds good.
Of Twilight, New Moon, and what's the name of the chapter?
The first chapter is called Party.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like
Chapter 1, Party.
We're partying it up. I like that. We'll be right back.
Bye.
Okay, Tara, it's time for Chapter 1 of New Moon Party. A lot of people have been waiting for this. Let's get into Chapter 1. Wait, don't I normally like do a thing where I predict what happens?
Yes,
okay.
You do.
Okay, so Party, there's
what do you think is going to happen? I mean, we already recapped the end of the book in the other timeline, like you said, but and that kind of ended on,
It ended kind of positively.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a party.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And it's gonna be like a typical like high school deal party.
Mm-hmm.
The who's who of everybody's
gonna
be
there. Are they drinking?
It's a high school party, so I'm sure they will. And everybody's favorite.
Are they doing the drugs?
I don't know about drugs.
Okay, just wondering.
I don't know if Stephanie Meyer's really into the drugs.
Probably not.
I don't think she does lines of coke in her.
Hey, how did she write this story?
Her skirt her leg long skirt was too tight, and it helped her write the story.
Okay, anyways.
Our friend from the previous story, Jacob, is going to show up.
Okay,
and
you think he has something to do with this?
I do think he has something to do with this.
You kind of know.
I know, like I kind of know that there's like a bit of a, there's Team Edward and Team Jacob, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows that. So I think they're gonna start this story off, and I think that comes into play in this book.
Okay.
If I know.
So that's your prediction.
So my prediction is Jacob's gonna be there, and he's gonna be like a little more grown up than Bella remembers him.
Oh.
I don't know how much time's passed. I'm not gonna predict that, but that's my prediction for chapter 1.
Well, I'm really excited because I remember reading Twilight, like the first book, when I was in like middle school. And I didn't think that it had like other ones after it or whatever.
Oh, so you thought this was it?
Mm-hmm. And I remember because I had rented Twilight from the library because I went to the library like all the time when I was a kid. It was like what we did after school to like pass the time. But I remember seeing the second one, this one, and I was like, oh my God, like, and it was like opening up the world again,
Yeah.
So I'm excited to jump back in.
I'm excited to jump back in. Let's get into it.
Okay. Cool. So the first line says, I was 99.9% sure I was dreaming.
Okay.
So basically she is.
Okay.
And the reason that she knows that is because she was looking at her grandma that was passed.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. That's a good sign you're dreaming.
Yeah, her gran had been dead for 6 years. So she was like, that's pretty solid evidence that we're in like a dream scenario right here. She's observing that her gran, like, it looks the same, like exactly as she remembers, and kind of is going up to her, like looking surprised.
Okay.
And she wants to ask her questions, obviously. Who wouldn't, I guess, if they saw their past grandparent in a dream.
Right. You'd at least want to be like, hey, what are you doing here?
And she has all these questions like in her mind, like what is she doing here and what's she been up to in the past 6 years, and like if she's found her pop, her grandpa, and wherever they were, like if they found each other wherever they were. They didn't say anything to each other, and she hears someone call out Bella, and it isn't the gran, like her gran that called out her name. It was Edward.
Edward Cullen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Edward.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
back, if you didn't know.
Everyone's favorite creep.
It says, I didn't have to look to know who it was. This was a voice I would know anywhere. Know and respond to whether I was awake or asleep, or even dead, I'd bet. The voice I'd walk through fire for, or less dramatically slosh every day through the cold and endless rain for. It was Edward. Even though I was always thrilled to see him, conscious or otherwise, and even though I was almost positive that I was dreaming, I panicked as Edward walked toward us through the glaring sunlight. I panicked because Gran didn't know that I was in love with a vampire. Nobody knew that. So how was I supposed to explain the fact that the brilliant sunbeams were shattering off his skin into 1,000 rainbow shards like he was made of crystal or diamond? Well, she's like thinking to herself, like, well, Gran, you might have noticed that my boyfriend glitters. It's just something he does in the sun. Don't worry about it.
I like that, she knows she's in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly something supernatural would have to be happening for her Gran to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet she's still worried about explaining the supernatural aspect of Edward to her Gran.
Yeah, and like she didn't explain it. She's just like thinking it in her head,
Right. But she's worried
in
about it.
In her dream, yes. And then she continues to like worry. She's like, what is he doing? Like the whole reason we lived it, like that he lives in Forks is because it's the rainiest place in the world. And that he could be outside in the daytime without exposing his family's secret. Yet here he was strolling gracefully towards me, with the most beautiful smile on his angel's face, as if I were the only one here. In that second, I wished that I was not the one exception to his mysterious talent. I usually felt grateful that I was the only one whose thoughts he couldn't hear just as clearly as if they were spoken aloud. But now I wished he could hear me too, so that he could hear the warning I was screaming in my head. So basically she was like still consciously worrying in her dream.
Right.
Which I guess people do.
Yeah.
I always like worry in my dreams too, and I'm like, wow, I didn't get any sleep.
People have the dreams where like their teeth fall out and stuff.
I've been having like those dreams lately, but not all the time, just every once in a while. But I've definitely been having like work dreams more and more lately. I think it's because I'm working a lot harder recently, and so like I subconsciously worry about my work, and then in my dreams I'm working too.
Right, exactly. And then you're not getting paid for that.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid
You're
for
not
that
getting paid for
time.
dream work.
That sucks.
I should start claiming that. Hey, I had a dream about this
Hey.
place. So I'd say that was like 3 hours.
In my dream, I would say that I was working for
Yeah.
another full shift. So I do need to get paid out for that. What would you call that? DTO? Dream time off?
Dream. Well, no, because you're not off. Like dream. I'm trying to like mash up the words dream and hazard.
Drazzard.
Drazzard pay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. Anyway, moving on.
She like is panicking, looking at her gran, and it was too late. She was just turning back to stare at her eyes as alarmed as mine. Edward, still smiling so beautifully that my heart felt like it was going to swell up and burst through my chest, put his arm around my shoulder, and turned to face my grandmother. Her expression surprised me. Instead of looking horrified, she was staring at me sheepishly, as if it was waiting for a scolding. And she was standing in such a strange position, one arm held awkwardly away from her body, stretched out and then curled around the air, like she had her arm around someone I couldn't see, someone invisible. Only then, as I looked at the bigger picture, did I notice the huge frame that enclosed my grandmother's form. Uncomprehending, I raised the hand that wasn't wrapped around Edward's waist and reached out to touch her. She mimicked the movement exactly, mirrored it. But where our fingers should have met, there was nothing but cold glass. With a dizzying jolt, my dream abruptly became a nightmare. There was no Gran. That was me, in the mirror. Me, ancient, creased, and withered. Edward stood beside me, casting no reflection, excruciatingly beautiful, and forever 17. He pressed his icy, perfect lips against my wasted cheek. "Happy birthday," he whispered. Ooh.
Yikes.
It says, I woke with a start, my eyelids popping open wide and gasped. She gasped. She was like, oh my God, holy shit.
Oh my God.
Dull gray light, the familiar light of an overcast morning, took the place of the blinding sun in my dream. Just a dream, I told myself. It was only a dream. I took a deep breath and then jumped again when my alarm went off. The little calendar in the corner of the clock's display informed me that today was September 13th. Only a dream, but prophetic enough in one way at least. Today was my birthday. I was officially 18 years old.
What a huge victory for Edward. He's no longer a freak. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Edward's a freak.
So then she like goes on to describe how she's like been dreading this day for months, right? Like, so basically the time that has passed, it tells us that it's been a summer.
Right.
Because the last part of the last book was prom.
Which is typically near the end of the school year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she talks about how they had a perfect summer, like the happiest summer that she's ever had, the happiest summer that anyone anywhere had probably had. But she knew that she would be turning a year older, and Edward never would. So she's feeling the weight of her existence, I guess.
Right. Because the idea is that eventually he would continue to live on and she would die.
Correct. And it says, it goes on to say, like, and now that it hit, if it was even worse than I'd feared it would be. I could feel it. I was older. Every day I got older, but this was different, worse, quantifiable. I was 18, and Edward would never be. It's funny because, like, I feel like when people do have a birthday, they don't feel any different. I mean,
it's actually my birthday today.
I was gonna say, do you feel different?
It's
we're recording this on Mike's birthday.
We're outing when we recorded this, but it is actually my birthday today.
Do you feel a year older right now?
No,
I mean, I guess in the way that she's describing it, it's more of an emotional feeling older rather than a.
Well, because it's tied to something very like
she says, quantifiable, like.
Well, very like most people don't have to deal with this problem. Like everybody has to deal with like the march
mortality.
Of time moving forward, and eventually you're not going to exist, at least in this way. And so that's tough enough as it is, but then you add in the fact that the
Your
person you
freaking
love
boyfriend, yeah.
is never going to experience that. So there's her side of the coin where it's like, one day I'm going to die and he won't. And then there's the side of his coin where it's like, oh, one day she's going to die and I won't, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
hard either way.
Yeah, I could see why both of them well, he's been around a little longer, but her
Just
at
a
her,
little bit.
her young age would feel that way, even though I didn't really start to feel like I was getting like older in a negative sense until I was like in my late 20s.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm almost 30. And then I was 30, and 30s are cool, you know?
Yeah. I'm feeling that right now, obviously, because
Right.
I'm approaching the last years of my 20s. It's so hard because it feels like so old. Like when you think of your parents, like when you're young, you think of like between 30 and 40, right?
Right.
And now they're like, my parents are like in their mid 50s going into 60s. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like my dad was saying the other day, it's so weird. All of your cousins, like all of my nephews are in their 30s right now.
Yeah.
Like, because my cousin that's a year older than me just turned 30, and then my cousin that's my oldest cousin is going to turn 40 in a few months.
Yikes.
So, like, everyone's within that 10-year decade. And I was like, well, just think about it. Like, next year you'll have 30-year-old daughters.
Twin daughters.
Twin daughters.
30 years old.
So.
That's 60 years combined.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute.
That's a lot of long time.
It's a lot of long time. Anyway, so yeah, getting old sucks. Thanks, Bella.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bella.
But anyways, so she just kind of gets ready for the day, and she's like looking at herself in the mirror, and she's like, okay, it was just a dream. Like, I'm not like old and wrinkly like my past gran yet.
Right.
And then she just like, has to probably go to school. It's, it's September. It's a new school year. So she skips breakfast and tries to get out to avoid her dad. She doesn't want to she's not like excited about gifts. So she just kind of skips through the whole interactions with her dad in the morning. And then she drives herself to school and sees Edward, at school, leaning against his silver Volvo like a cool ass bitch that he is. The actual sentence says, I spotted Edward leaning motionlessly against his polished silver Volvo like a marble tribute to some forgotten pagan god of beauty.
Jesus Christ.
It says, the dream had not done him justice, and he was waiting there for me, just the same as every other day. Despair momentarily vanished. She's in despair about getting older and stuff. And wonder took its place. Even after a half a year with him, I still couldn't believe that I deserved this degree of good fortune. His sister Alice was standing by his side waiting for me too. Of course, Edward and Alice weren't really related. So basically they go back, and obviously, since this is the beginning of this next book, they kind of describe some of the history of the previous book.
Right. Just, which it doesn't, I don't know what idiot is going, ooh, Twilight New Moon.
Yeah.
And grabbing that first, but just in case.
A lot of a lot of things do that, if you think about it.
I did.
A lot of times, a lot of books do that. I've been rereading Harry Potter, which I know haven't ever read, and that will be maybe one of the series for this coming up in the future, maybe in the far future. But I've been rereading it, and I'm on the third one again, and I haven't read the books in a really long time. I've watched the movies a ton, even though I like the books better. And I realized how much they recap almost every preschool year, what's going on. I don't think they do it as much in the later years for him, because there's other things going on. I guess it makes
sense because it's how long has it been since you read the first book?
Correct.
If you were a diehard Twilight fan and you read the first book and then you were waiting on New Moon to come out.
For sure. I think the first one came out in 2007.
That would make sense.
Or 8. Oh, shit. It's way earlier than I remembered.
Oh.
2005.
Okay.
October 5th, 2005. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
And that would make sense. That would put me in the timeline of being in middle school. Early middle school. And then, new moon was a year later in 2006, and then the next one was a year later, 2007.
Stephanie Meyer pumping them out.
She really was. Then the next one was literally a year later, 2008. So like Twilight was October, then New Moon was August 21, 2006, then the next one was August 7, 2007, so August to August.
So New Moon wasn't even a year later.
Correct. And then the last one was August 2nd, 2008, so another August, another year later.
Wow.
And then that recap, but in Edward's perspective, was released in August again, but in 2020, obviously. That was
she
only
likes
a couple
August.
Years. Yeah. Couple years ago.
So they do a lot of recapping of the characters.
Yeah, so
we know who Alice is.
Yeah, they just go through like, how the family dynamic for them works. She starts to describe about how Alice is waiting there and she's like, oh crap. Like she told Alice she didn't want any gifts, but there's Alice standing there with a gift, of course.
Classic Alice.
Says, obviously my wishes were being ignored. I slammed the door of my 53 Chevy truck. A shower of rust specks fluttered down to the wet blacktop, and I walked slowly toward where they waited. Alice skipped forward to meet me, her pixie face glowing under her spiky black hair. Happy birthday, Bella. Shh, I hissed, glancing around the lot to make sure no one had heard her. She's very anti-birthday. The last thing I wanted was some kind of celebration of the black event. She makes it seem so dramatic. She said, do you want to open your present now or later? She asked eagerly as we made our way to where Edward still waited. No presents, I protested in a mumble. She finally seemed to process my mood. Okay, later then. Did you like the scrapbook your mom sent you? And the camera from Charlie? I sighed. Of course she would know what my birthday presents were. Edward wasn't the only member of his family with unusual skills, so it goes over that again.
That they have some things that they can do because they're vampires.
They're vampires. Yeah, they're great. I think it's a nice idea. You're only a senior once. Might as well document the experience. How many times have you been a senior? That's different, she says. So, Bella asks, how many times has Alice been a senior? She's been a senior a lot of times. We reached Edward then, and he held out his hand for mine. I took it eagerly, forgetting for a moment my glum mood. His skin was, as always, smooth, hard, and very cold. Hard and cold
returns for season 2, ladies and gentlemen.
He gave my fingers a gentle squeeze. I looked into his liquid topaz eyes, and my heart gave a not quite so gentle squeeze of its own. Hearing the stutter in my heartbeats, he smiled again. He lifted his free hand and traced one cool fingertip around the outside of my lips as he spoke. So, as discussed, I am not allowed to wish you a happy birthday. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. I could never quite mimic the flow of his perfect, formal articulation. It was something that could only be picked up in an earlier century. Just checking, he ran through his hand through his tousled bronze hair. You might have changed your mind. Most people seem to enjoy things like birthdays and gifts. Alice laughed, and the sound was all silver, a wind chime. Of course you'll enjoy it. Everyone is supposed to be nice to you today and give you your way, Bella. What's the worst that could happen? She meant it as a rhetorical question. Getting older, I answered anyway, and my voice was not as steady as I wanted it to be. Beside me, Edward's smile tightened into a hard line. 18 isn't very old, Alice said. Don't women usually wait till they're 29 to get upset over birthdays?
See, Alice knows.
She freaking roasted me. She roasted my fucking ass.
Yeah, she did.
It's older than Edward, I mumbled. He sighed. Technically, she said, keeping her tone light, just by one little year, though. And I supposed if I could be sure of the future I wanted, sure that I could get to spend forever with Edward and Alice and the rest of the Cullens, then a year or two, one direction or the other wouldn't matter to me so much. But Edward was dead set against any future that changed me, any future that made me like him, and that made me immortal too. An impasse, he called it, if you remember that. They talked about that in the hospital. I couldn't really see Edward's point, to be honest. What was so great about mortality? Being a vampire didn't look like such a terrible thing. Not the way the Cullens did it anyways. What time will you be at the house? Alice continued, changing the subject. From her expression, she was up to exactly the kind of thing I'd been hoping to avoid. I didn't know I had plans to be there. Oh, be fair, Bella, she complained. You aren't going to ruin all our fun like that, are you? I thought my birthday was about what I wanted.
It never is.
I'll get her from Charlie's right after school, Edward told her, ignoring me altogether. I have to work, I protested. You don't actually, Alice told me smugly. I already spoke to Mrs. Newton about it. She's trading your shifts. She said to tell you happy
Wait,
birthday.
Bella has a job?
She does have a job.
What does she do?
I think it says it later, or I don't know if it said it in the last book, but she works at Mike Newton's dad's shop.
Yeah, if it did say it in the book, we never talked about it.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It might just be coming up like later.
I mean, she's a senior in high school now. You probably should get a job, Bella.
Yeah, so she works for his shop.
Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. Newton, Mike Newton's mom.
Simp Mike.
Yes, exactly. And then she like explains that she still can't come over and she hasn't watched Romeo and Juliet yet for English class. And Alice is like, well, you have it memorized, so like that's just an excuse.
Roasted.
They're like bantering back and forth about how Alice is like, well, you've already seen the movie, and she's like, well, I haven't seen the 1960s version, blah blah blah.
Basically, Bella's just trying to get out of coming over.
For sure. And then Alice gets mad and is like, well, this can be easy or this can be hard, Bella, but one way or the other, like, I'm going to get you to this thing. And Edward interrupts her and is like, relax. Like, if she wants to watch a movie, then she can. It's her birthday. Like, she can do what she wants, you know? And then he agrees to bring her over around 7. So then it gives Alice a little more time to set up. And then Alice is in a good mood again and is like, okay, great, bye. Bella still tries to protest to Edward, but he's like, let's discuss it later. We're going to be late for class.
Right. Come on, Bella. Get your shit together. You're going to be late for class.
And then it kind of describes about how they go to their usual seats in the back of the classroom and how they have almost every class together now.
How does that work?
It says it was amazing the favors Edward could get the female administrators to do for him.
Wait, so he was like flirting with them?
Well, just like in the first book.
Or he was like...
He just used his cool, soothing voice. No.
Oh. Not his cool penis?
No.
His icicle
Maybe.
penis?
I'm just kidding. And it discussed like how even Simp Mike didn't even bother to give her like a little glum stare that used to make her feel guilty, you know, because she's not giving him any attention.
Yeah, Simp Mike is over. He's over. He's not even in the running.
It says he smiled now and said, and I was glad he seemed to have accepted that we could only be friends. Mike had changed over the summer. His face had lost some of the roundness, making his cheekbones more prominent, and he was wearing his pale blonde hair a new way. Instead of bristly, it was longer and gelled into a careful, casual disarray.
Ooh.
It was easy to see where his inspiration came from, but Edward's look wasn't something that could be achieved through imitation.
Oh, Simp Mike.
Yeah, he tried to look like Edward.
Simp Mike, what are you doing?
So like the day is just going on and she's trying to like consider like how she can get out of this thing at the Cullens house, especially because she's like saying, like thinking in her mind, like especially she wants to get out of it because she's in a bad mood, but especially even more because it involves like having the attention on her and like getting gifts. She doesn't like that.
Right. Her not liking birthdays isn't just about how that she's getting older. It's that she doesn't like that kind of attention.
Correct. And it says attention is never a good thing, as any other accident-prone klutz would agree. Like it brings up the fact that she's super clumsy and stuff again. And it discusses about how she like ordered everyone not to get her presents and things, and that. Oh, and then this is the part where it does talk about her job.
Oh, okay.
It says my only personal income came from because it talks about like, well, it talks about how they've never had like much money.
Right. Charlie's not a well-off dude.
Correct. It just says that, you know,
he can't even get Cinemax.
Renee.
He's got to watch the Scramble.
I forgot about that. It talks about how Renee raised her on a kindergarten teacher's salary, and then Charlie, you know, even as police chief, it's in a tiny town. And then it says, my only personal income came from the 3 days a week I worked at the local sporting goods store. In a town this small, I was lucky to have a job. Every penny I made went into my microscopic college fund. College was plan B. I was still hoping for plan A, but Edward was just so stubborn about leaving me human. And then it talks about how like Edward and the Cullens have a lot of money, which is obviously because they have like an unlimited amount of time on their hands, more so than anything.
Yeah, I saw this tweet
Shut up.
about vampires where someone was tweeting out like, how are vampires so rich?
Mm-hmm.
And this was obviously talking about like classic vampire rules, but someone quote tweeted it saying, if you're alive for thousands of years and you're still broke, you might as well walk out into the sun, fam. Like, it made me laugh so hard.
It's so true. What it says for real. I love that though. Just you fucked it up.
If you're alive for 1,000 years and you're still broke, you might as well walk out into the sun.
Just do it. It's something that you accumulate when you have unlimited time on your hands, and a sister who has an uncanny ability to predict trends in the stock market.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they're kind of a little bit illegal.
So here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
If these books just got pushed ahead like 15 years,
mm-hmm.
the Cullen family,
mm-hmm.
they definitely are into like crypto.
Oh,
right?
for sure. For sure.
Like they definitely have some Dogecoin.
I would say they definitely have some Bitcoin.
Some Bitcoin.
From like the early Bitcoin days.
They bought Bitcoin when it was like less than a penny.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just fucking living in it.
Yeah. It says, Edward didn't seem to understand why I objected to him spending money on me, why it made me uncomfortable if he took me to the most expensive restaurant in Seattle, why he isn't allowed to buy me a car that could reach speeds over 55 miles an hour, or why I wouldn't let him pay my college tuition. He was ridiculously enthusiastic about Plan B. So, like, basically in her mind, Plan A is her becoming a vampire.
Right.
And Plan B is them going to college.
Because you shouldn't go to college if you become a vampire. Like, why can't you do both?
Well, that's the thing is, I think either in the movie or later in this book, it talks about how, or in a different book, how they, like, definitely have gone to college. And, like, how they've gotten multiple degrees. I think they kind of talked about it in Carlisle's story in the last book, is how he's studied different things, but it ended up being that being a doctor was, like, the easiest, I guess. I don't know.
The thing that he wanted to do the most to help people. Yeah. Easiest way to help people, for sure.
Yes, for sure. It says, how could I let him give me things when I had nothing to reciprocate with? He, for some unfathomable reason, I can't say that today.
Unfathomable.
I can't say it.
Unfathomable.
Wanted to be with me. Anything he gave me on top of that just threw us even more out of balance. So then as the day went on, neither of them brought up her birthday again. So she was like, yeah, this is fine.
Hell yeah.
They have a new usual table for lunch.
Oh.
It says a strange kind of truce existed at that table. The three of us, Edward, Alice, and I, sat on the extreme southern end of the table. Now that the older, in quotations, and somewhat scarier, in Emmett's case certainly, Cullen siblings had graduated. So they graduated because they were seniors last year.
Emmett and
Rosalie.
Mm-hmm. I was like Rosie. So they graduated.
Yes.
So the idea is when Alice and Edward graduate, is that when they switch schools? Is that what they typically do?
I think like that's the typical thing is, well, or they take some time not being in school and then they go and
they show back up as juniors somewhere else.
Yeah. It says Alice and Edward did not seem quite so intimidating without them, and we did not sit here alone. My other friends, Mike and Jessica, who were in the awkward post-breakup friendship phase.
Come on, Simp Mike, what are you doing?
Angela and Ben, whose relationship had survived the summer. And then Eric, Connor, Tyler, and Lauren, though that last one didn't really count in the friend category. Remember, Lauren's kind of a B.
Yeah, she's kind of a B word.
All sat at the same table on the other side of an invisible line. That line dissolved on sunny days when Edward and Alice skipped school. And then the conversation would swell out effortlessly to include me. So, like, they don't notice it. Like, Edward and Alice don't notice that the others, like, kind of just are intimidated and ignore them.
Right.
Describes how people always felt, like, ill at ease with them. Like, unconsciously. But like her being a part of that was like a rare exception to that. Just wants people to, the book wants people to know that like there is a divide still.
Right. It's not like everybody's like hunky dory.
Correct. And then she was also the exception to like being close to them. Like she doesn't feel ill at ease being close to them. It says sometimes it bothered Edward how comfortable I was being with being close to him. He thought it was hazardous to my health, an opinion I rejected vehemently whenever he voiced it.
Right.
And then the afternoon passes, and he walks her back to her truck, but then he holds open the passenger door, and it says, I folded my arms and made no move to get out of the rain. It's my birthday, don't I get to drive? I'm pretending it's not your birthday, just as you wished. If it's not my birthday, then I don't have to go to your house tonight. All right. He shut the passenger door and walked past me to open the driver's side. Happy birthday. I shushed him half-heartedly. I climbed in the open door, wishing he'd taken the other offer. Edward played with the radio while I drove, shaking his head in disapproval. Your radio has horrible reception. I frowned. I didn't like it when he picked on my truck. The truck was great. It has a personality. You want a nice stereo? Drive your own car, she said.
Roasted.
Freaking roasted him.
Take that. Get fucked, Edward. You have a nice car. You vampire freak.
Right. So then they just get back to her house, and they're like at her home. And he said, you should be in a good mood today of all days. He whispered, his sweet breath fanned across my face. And if I don't want to be in a good mood, I asked, my breathing uneven. His golden eyes smoldered. Too bad.
Yeah, get in a good mood, Bella. It's your birthday.
And then they kiss, and it's like a whole... It's a whole thing, because she always, like, goes a little too hard at him. And he's like, you gotta calm down. Like, we can't get out of control here.
He's like, I'm a little too cold and hard for this.
It says, Edward had drawn many careful lines for our physical relationship with the intent being to keep me alive. Though I respected the need for maintaining a safe distance between my skin and his razor-sharp, venom-coated teeth, I tended to forget about trivial things like that when he was kissing me. Be good, please, he breathed against my cheek. He pressed his lips gently to mine one more time and then pulled away. Do you think I'll ever get better at this? I wondered, mostly to myself out loud. She said that out loud, though. That my heart might someday stop trying to jump out of my chest whenever you touch me? I really hope not, he said, a bit smug. I rolled my eyes. Let's go watch the Capulets and Montagues hack each other up, all right? So then they do watch Romeo and Juliet. And
Wait, which one, though?
The 1966
Not
version.
the Leo one?
No.
Not the Claire Danes one?
No. And then he comments, I've never had much patience with Romeo. What's wrong with Romeo? I asked, a little offended. Romeo was one of my favorite fictional characters. If you don't remember, she's very into, like, literature.
Shakespeare.
Literature as a whole.
Shakespeare.
Until I'd met Edward, I'd sort of had a thing for him, it says. Well, first of all, he's in love with this Rosaline. Or Rosaline, I don't know.
Rosalind?
Rosalind? Is that
I think
how
it's
you say it?
Rosalind, yeah. If I remember my Romeo and Juliet, I believe it's Rosalind.
It's funny because I always pronounce things differently in my head when I'm reading them, though.
Well, yeah, that's pretty normal. That's actually a thing, like, with, like, 90s, like, video games that didn't have voice acting, and then they have, like, a re-release where they added voice acting, and then people are like, wait, that's how you say that?
And you're like, shit.
Or, like, Pokemon, that happens with a lot, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it says, well, first of all, he's in love with Rosalind. Don't you think it makes him seem a little fickle? And then a few minutes after their wedding, he kills Juliet's cousin. That's not very brilliant. Mistake after mistake. Could he have destroyed his own happiness any more thoroughly? I sighed. Do you want me to watch this alone? No, I'll mostly be watching you anyways. His fingers traced patterns against the skin of my arms, raising goosebumps. Will you cry? He asks. Probably, I admitted, if I'm paying attention. I won't distract you then. So then they continued to watch.
I gotta say, I'm not anti-Edward, but he comes off as a creep a lot to me still.
He's kind of creepy.
But he's spitting straight facts about Romeo.
Yes.
Just saying.
I think it's funny because, like, when you read this to yourself, it doesn't sound as creepy, but when I'm reading this out loud, I'm like, it literally, the next part is like Edward's whispering Romeo's lines to her.
Right.
Like that's kind of weird.
Edward just kind of comes off, at best, he comes off as like a theater kid. And at worst, he comes off as like
the creepiest
someone
person
that should be
alive.
in prison.
Right. But it's like weird because like when you read it, like when I read it when I was in middle school, I was like, this is totally normal.
Well, you're in middle school, you're like, oh, he's so hot, right?
Yeah.
But like you read it as like an adult and you go, he's a bit cringe.
Yeah, he's a little cringe.
He's a bit cringe.
And then she does cry because, you know, Juliet wakes up and finds her dead husband.
Right.
Spoilers for Romeo and Juliet if you don't know that.
Tara.
And Edward says, I'll admit I do sort of envy him here, drying the tears with a lock of my hair. She's very pretty. He made a disgusted sound. I don't envy him, the girl, just the ease of suicide, he clarified in a teasing tone. You humans have it so easy. All you have to do is throw down one tiny vial of plant extracts. What? I gasped. It's something I had to think about once, and I knew from Carlyle's experience that it wouldn't be simple. I'm not even sure how many ways Carlyle tried to kill himself in the beginning, after he'd realized what he had become. His voice, which had grown serious, turned light again, and he's clearly still in excellent health. I twisted around so that I could read his face. What are you talking about? I demanded. What do you mean this is something you had to think about once? Last spring, when you were nearly killed, he paused to take a deep breath, struggling to return his teasing tone. Of course, I was trying to focus on finding you alive, but part of my mind was making contingency plans. Like I said, it's not as easy for me as it is for a human. For 1 second, the memory of my last trip to Phoenix, so then it like talks about, it recaps that
what
whole
happened
thing.
at the end of
Correct.
the book, yeah.
She says, so then it gets done doing that, and it says, contingency plans? Well, I wasn't going to live without you. He rolled his eyes as if that fact were childishly obvious, but I wasn't sure how to do it. I knew Emmett and Jasper would never help, so I was thinking maybe I would go to Italy and do something to provoke the Vulture.
So who's the Vulture?
No, I said Vulture.
Vulture. Vultures.
What is a Vulture? I demanded.
Bella's asking for me.
Yes.
Thank you, Bella.
The Vulture are a family, he explained, his eyes still remote. A very old, very powerful family of our kind. They are the closest thing our world has to a royal family, I suppose. Carlyle lived with them briefly in his early years in Italy before he settled in America. Do you remember the story?
Yes, I do.
He's asking Bella, but sure.
Me, Bella, I know.
Of course I remember. She says, I would never forget the first time I'd gone to his home, the huge white mansion. So then it goes over when she went to them,
right?
Their house for the first time. It's basically a whole freaking summary here. It gets all the way to the point where it says, I remembered the three others, Carlyle's early acquaintances. Edward had never used the name Vulture for the beautiful trio, two black-haired, one snow-white. He'd called them Aro, Caius, and Marcus, nighttime patrons of the arts. Anyway, you don't irritate the Vulture, Edward went on, interrupting my reverie. Not unless you want to die, or whatever it is that we do. His voice was so calm, it made him sound almost bored by the prospect. My anger turned to horror. I took his marble face between my hands and held it very tightly. You must never, never, never think of anything like that again, I said. No matter what might ever happen to me, you are not allowed to hurt yourself. I'll never put you in danger again, so it's a moot point. Put me in danger? I thought we'd established that all the bad luck is my fault. I was getting angrier. How dare you even think like that? The idea of Edward ceasing to exist, even if I were dead, was impossibly painful. What would you do if the situation were reversed? He asked. That's not the same thing. He didn't seem to understand the difference. He chuckled. What if something did happen to you? I blanched at the thought. Would you want me to go off myself? A trace of pain touched his perfect features. I guess I see your point, a little, he admitted, but what would I do without you? Whatever you were doing before I came along and complicated your existence, she says. He sighed. You make that sound so easy. It should be. I'm really not that interesting. Here she goes again, thinking she's all like quirky and different. And then Charlie gets home and he brings a pizza. Cause he's
fucking
nice.
Charlie,
legend. He brings a pizza.
Legend.
It says that Charlie never comments on Edward like not ever being hungry.
Mm.
Like, because he has to turn down the pizza. Edward has to turn down the pizza.
Right. I'm guessing if he thinks anything about it, he thinks he probably like does coke or something.
Yeah.
And that's probably
maybe.
why he doesn't eat.
And then Edward asks if he can borrow Bella for the evening. And then Charlie's like, the baseball game's on tonight, so that's fine.
Yeah, the ball game's
The
on.
ball game,
The
baby.
ball game's on. Come on. Miggy's batting third. Edward, come on. Other
well,
baseball
the Mariners,
things that people say.
The Mariners are
Ken
playing
Griffey
the Sox,
Jr. or
is
something.
what it says, yeah.
I don't know. Randy Johnson. These are baseball players, maybe.
Are they? I don't know.
The big unit. That's a nickname of a baseball player. Did you know that?
No.
The big unit.
That
just sounds like his cock's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was like 6'7", and he was a pitcher.
Yeah.
So he was a big unit himself, but like that's just like screaming, "Hey, my cock is huge."
It's huge. Okay. Anyways.
Anyway, stay tuned for our baseball podcast from two people who know nothing about baseball.
So yeah. I know some things about baseball, but only the Tigers.
I clearly know some things, like Randy Johnson, the big unit, one time threw a pitch and a bird got in the path of the pitch and the bird exploded.
That's fucked up.
It's crazy. You guys should look it up if you've never seen it.
I might have to look it up after
It's nuts.
this.
The bird just explodes.
Well, yeah, the thing's going 99
he's like throwing
mile
like a
per
100
hour.
mile an hour fastball.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So then Renee really did get her a camera for her birthday.
Oh, Renee.
And
Can
Bella
Edward show up in the pictures?
Yeah.
Or is it just
Actually,
a mirror?
I think
is
it
that just
goes
a mirror rule?
I think it goes over that, so just stop.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So just shut up. I'm just kidding.
Okay, sorry.
So then she almost drops the camera and he catches it and Charlie's like, nice save, man. Like, let's have fun.
You know what, Edward? You're pretty
have
cool,
fun
man.
tonight. Yeah. And it says, if they're doing something fun at the Cullens tonight, you should take some pictures. You know how your mother gets. She'll be wanting to see the pictures faster than you can take them. Good idea, Charlie, Edward said, handing me the camera. I turned the camera on Edward and snapped the first picture. It works. Good. Hey, say hi to Alice for me. She hasn't been over in a while. So Charlie's a big Alice fan.
I mean, can you blame the man?
He'd become attached last spring when she'd helped me through my awkward convalescence. So, like, when she was in, like, the cast and everything.
Right.
Charlie would be forever grateful to her for saving him from the horror of an almost adult daughter who needed help showering. I'll tell her you said hi. Okay, you kids have fun tonight. And he's already, like, on his way to the living room with the pizza, And then they drive to Edward's house, of course. And they're talking about, like, because he's driving her truck, and they're talking about how he wants to buy her, like, a new car, and it's going to be, he wants to buy her, like, an Audi coupe, like, something really fucking expensive. And she's like, nah, really, truly, nah. And he says, can you do me a favor? And she says that depends on what it is. And he sighs, Bella, the last real birthday any of us had was Emmett in 1935. Cut us a little slack and don't be too difficult tonight. They're all very excited. It always startled me a little when he brought up things like that. Fine, I'll behave. I probably should warn you. Please do. When I say they're all excited, I do mean all of them. Everyone, I choked. I thought Emmett and Rosalie were in Africa. The rest of the Forks was under the impression that the older Cullens had gone off to college this year to Dartmouth, but I knew better. So, like, the story was that they went to Dartmouth, but they were really off, like, adventuring in different places.
Right, doing whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, they can. They're fucking vampires.
Right. Wait, they went to Africa, though?
Yeah, why not?
Aren't they going to be fucking glowing like crazy?
Yeah, but they can be, like, away from people and stuff.
I guess.
They're not, like, in their existence.
Were they, like, hunting like animals?
Well, I don't know, but they're like, when they're not in, like, their town, they can live whatever existence they want.
Well,
not to say that they wouldn't be, like, eating humans because they don't do that, but, like.
But, like, people are going to see them shiny, though.
Yeah.
Do they not care,
I don't know.
guess?
I don't have, like, that big backstory for you.
Stephanie Meyer, when is the Emmett and Rosalie in Africa book?
I don't know.
I need
Never.
to know. I need to know.
Emmett wanted to be here, Edward says, but Rosalie, I know, Bella, don't worry, she'll be on her best behavior. I didn't answer, like I could just not worry that easy. Unlike Alice, Edward's other sister, Rosalie, didn't like me much. Actually, the feeling was a little bit stronger than just dislike. As far as Rosalie was concerned, I was an unwelcome intruder into her family's secret life. So then it kind of, like, describes that, that part of it. So if you won't let me get you the Audi, is there anything else you'd like for your birthday? The words came out in a whisper. You know what I want. A deep frown carved creases into his marble forehead. Not tonight, Bella, please. She's like, just turn me into a vampire.
Oh, I thought she was going to say that dick.
That dick? No.
That cold dick.
Well, maybe Alice will give me what I want. Edward growled, a deep, menacing sound. This isn't going to be your last birthday, Bella, he vowed. That's not fair. I thought I heard his teeth clench together, but we were pulling up to the house now. So then they see like a long line of glowing Japanese lanterns and like big bowls of flowers. And like she could tell that Alice went all out. He said, this is a party. Try to be a good sport. So this is the party. So
The
you're
party.
wrong.
I was wrong about the party. Let's go. Wait, what if Jacob shows up there anyway, though?
We'll see. She says, I have a question. He waits warily. If I develop this film, will you show up in the picture? Edward starts laughing. He helped me pull out the car, pulled me up the stairs, and was still laughing as he opened the door for me. So like he's like, LOL, yeah, I will. Like, you're kidding.
Oh, so it's like
like a myth thing.
Ha ha ha, funny vampire. Stephanie Meyer's turning vampires on their heads. They're so different.
So then she describes, after they're joking about the stupid film,
right,
this huge party that Alice has put together.
Okay.
Where it's like every flat surface has 100 pink candles and dozens of crystal bowls filled with roses and a big white cloth draped over the grand piano with birthday cake and roses and glass plates and like wrapped presents.
Mm-hmm.
It was 100 times worse than I'd imagined.
Something she would absolutely hate.
Correct. And Edward, sensing my distress, wrapped an encouraging arm around my waist and kissed the top of my head. So like he just like redirects her to his parents. And Edward says, sorry about this, Bella. Oh no, Carlisle says, sorry about this, Bella. We couldn't rein Alice in.
Carlisle knows.
Alice went a little buck wild. You know, they see Rosalie and Emmett. Like, she has a good interaction with Emmett, but doesn't really say anything at all to Rosalie.
Right. Well, Emmett's kind of the boy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He, like, wrestles bears and stuff.
Correct. And then Alice and Jasper are there, of course. And Jasper kind of keeps his distance, as he always does. Alice says, time to open presents. And she says, Alice, I know I told you I didn't want anything, but I didn't listen, she said. Open it. She took the camera from my hand and replaced it with a big square silver box. The box was so light that it felt empty. The tag on top of it said that it was from Emmett, Rosalie, and Jasper. Self-consciously, I tore the paper off and then stared at the box it concealed. It was something electric, with lots of numbers in the name. I opened the box, and it was empty. Thanks? Rosalie actually cracked a smile. Jasper laughed. It's a stereo for your truck. Emmett's installing it right now so that you can't return it. Alice was always one step ahead of me. Thanks, Jasper, Rosalie. Thanks, Emmett, I called more loudly. I heard a booming laugh from my truck, and I couldn't help laughing, too. So she's kind of enjoying it.
Right.
Open mine and Edward's next, Alice said. So excited her voice was a high-pitched trill. Sorry. She held a small, flat square in her hand. I turned to give Edward a basilisk glare. You promised. Before he could answer, Emmett bounded through the door. Just in time, he crowed. He pushed in behind Jasper, who had also drifted closer than usual to get a good look. I didn't spend a dime, Edward assured me. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, leaving my skin tingling from his touch. I inhaled deeply and turned to Alice. Give it to me, I sighed. Emmett chuckled with delight. I took the little package, rolling my eyes at Edward while I stuck my finger under the paper and jerked it under the tape. Shoot, I muttered when the paper sliced my finger. I pulled it out to examine the damage. A single drop of blood oozed from the tiny cut. It all happened very quickly then. No, Edward roared. He threw himself at me, flinging me back across the table. It fell, as I did, scattering the cake and the presents, the flowers and the plates. I landed in the mess of shattered crystal. Jasper slammed into Edward, and the sound was like the crash of boulders in a rock slide. There was another noise, a grisly snarling that seemed to be coming from deep in Jasper's chest. Jasper tried to shove past Edward, snapping his teeth just inches from Edward's face. Emmett grabbed Jasper from behind in the next second, locking him into his massive steel grip. But Jasper struggled on, his wild, empty eyes focused only on me. Behind the shock, there was only pain. I had tumbled down to the floor by the piano, with my arms thrown out instinctively to catch my fall into the jagged shards of glass. Only now did I feel the searing, stinging pain that ran from my wrist to the crease inside my elbow. Dazed and disoriented, I looked up from the bright red blood pulsing out of my arm into the fevered eyes of the 6 suddenly ravenous vampires. And that's the end of the chapter.
What the fuck? Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you
obviously
think
nothing bad is gonna happen.
No.
Because I mean, there's more books, obviously. But
yeah.
But I don't know. Obviously Jasper don't give a fuck.
I think that it kind of describes in the previous book and in this book, he's the newest vampire of them all, so he can't control himself.
Right. And, you know, as Edward has said, Bella smells some kind of way to these vampires.
Mm-hmm.
She smell good.
Mm-hmm.
She got that good blood that they're trying to sip on like a juice box. So
she's like always in danger around them anyways,
right.
is the point. But,
But then Edward made it worse by throwing her into a fucking like crystal ball shit.
Yep.
And I get why he did it, but he could have used a little more tact.
Right, correct. She literally just had like a paper cut, basically.
Right. And if he would have just pushed her away instead of throwing her into shit, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. But now it sounds like there are more hungry vampires. Like maybe everybody's noticed how bloody she is, and they're like, but I don't think anything bad's gonna happen, because if you think about how the last book ended with like her situation with the bad vampire.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about that, like, they weren't trying to eat her then, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of blood. That's gonna do it for this episode. A little cliffhanger for you guys for next week. We'll be back next week with episode 2. Thank you so much for listening. We're so excited to be back. We hope you guys are excited too.
Hope you enjoy it.
And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Do we have a sign off?
I don't remember, so I guess for now we'll just say bye.
We'll just say
peace.
Peace.
Be with you.
Enjoy your CBT. Bye.
Bye.